Good evening. This is World News, World Talks on TVP World, and my name is Anna Kalczyńska. Following massive protests in Georgia's capital, Tbilisi, 8 people have been detained, and the regime promises more arrests. Following the disputed local election results, tensions are running high. The ruling Georgian Dream party claimed victory with some 80% win, while the opposition accuses authorities of vote rigging. To shed more light on the topic, I'm joined now by Tamar Gamrelidze. Good evening, Madam. Senior Research Fellow, CIFE European Institute. Thank you so much for coming and for joining us here in the studio. So, massive crowds have rallied in Tbilisi with clashes, attempt to also storm the Presidential Palace. We've all seen this live. What does this level of unrest tell about the situation in Georgia today?
There is a certain segment of population really believe that revolution is the only way to change the government. And in other words, there is demand for radical change. Because right now, the current situation as it follows. Georgian Dream government does not intend to give up power. It controls all branches of government, key state institutions, including Central Election Commission. It ignores recommendations by OSCE or DIR. It doesn't investigate reports on misconduct and falsification of elections. So this means that election is not the proper way to change the government. And the big question for those who doesn't recognize legitimacy of this government is how to get rid of this pro-Russian government when election is effectively blocked. If elections is not the option, what are the other alternatives? Right now, the protest has been the main tool to demand change. And it has been going on for 313 days. Exactly. And in particular, the demand of the protest was new parliamentary elections and release of political prisoners. In fact, protest achieved non-recognition and international isolation of Georgian Dream government. However, it could not manage to result into new parliamentary elections and release of political prisoners. Yeah. Given such situation, a lot of people think that revolution is the only way to change the government. However, and nevertheless, a lot of people who came to the protest on October 4, they came for a peaceful protest. And they viewed opposition leaders, organizers talk about sending government home with irony. Mm-hmm. And obviously, opposition leaders, organizers of this rally, they made huge mistake who called for revolution and storming of presidential palace, because their actions benefited only Georgian Dream government. They actually damaged opposition-minded demonstrations cause to stand there. First of all, for 2 reasons. First of all, this failed attempt, this poorly thought out attempt, deepens frustration within people and creates disengagement. And this is exactly what Georgian Dream government wants to make people lose faith and trust into political processes. And second, the most important, and I think the most concerning, is that they damaged protest as a legitimate tool to demand change. In fact, allegations, Georgian Dream's allegations that opposition intends to use protests as a tool to change the government has been acted upon. And now, Georgian Dream government can supposedly, legitimately use restrictive measures against opposition-minded protesters.
And it is using it, absolutely. And
Exactly.
it is also formulating this argument saying that the protests are an attempted coup backed by foreign actors, let me quote the Prime Minister. So how do claims like this affect the situation internally? You say that they generate frustration, but on the other side, it's obviously it is the other way round. It is because of this frustration that people are using all the tools possible, including those of violence, right, in the streets. So do you believe that actions like this could somehow undermine the government, especially in the rural areas?
I think at this moment, opposition will use this as a pretext for a new wave of repression. It doesn't, and it already announced it, actually, by declaring that future gatherings in Georgia will be considered as a continued attempt of revolution. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily mean that Georgian Dream government can't falsificate or invent the charges. But right now, it has a legitimate reason to use constitutional rights and invoke some restrictive measures.
Okay. Let me just follow on this divide, right, between the urban-rural areas, right? Because this is interesting. Rural regions remain loyal, and the cities are largely anti-Georgian Dream Party. So what does it say also in the context of the future and the accession perhaps one day to the European Union? Do you believe that this divide can somehow get shallower and somehow people will come to a common conclusion?
I think in rural areas, Georgian Dream government has been more effective in terms of disinformation, in terms of distribution of small benefits. It was easier for them to buy votes from smaller cities. However, here the most important thing is how opposition or civil society will use the potentials they have. Right now, as we see, opposition is divided. Georgian Dream government legalized its administration of 74 municipalities through these local elections. As said, opposition is divided. Majority of them is in prison, some of them for ridiculous charges, some for coup d'etat. 13 people were arrested and more will be affected. And the potential that actually opposition had a greater moral advantage and physical presence in terms of popular support, especially in the big cities. However, those potentials were wasted. And those potentials were wasted on internal fight. They could not manage to overcome internal differences for the common goal. They could not compromise. They could not calculate. They could not coordinate. That was the huge mistake from opposition side, which was used by Georgian Dream government.
And how about the Moldova recent election, which could be a lesson also for Georgia, right? How to overcome this huge Russian disinformation and the internal pressure put on the voters. So basically, Moldova did it. Do you think that one day Georgia also and Georgian opposition will be able to follow this suit?
Lately, I was in Moldova and I could see that the whole society, and when I'm saying the whole society, I also mean governmental structures, officials, society at large, they are mobilized against disinformation. So the difference between Georgia and Moldova is that there is a government in power who is fighting disinformation, while in Georgia, Georgian Dream government alienates the power of the partners in the West and aligns its narrative with Kremlin's narrative. So here we need a goodwill or not only goodwill, but the government who will be in the service of people and in terms of bringing country closer to European Union.
Or solidarity among the opposition leaders, which is lacking apparently.
Exactly, and that was something that prevented opposition to capitalize on the potentials they had.
Right. All right, 13 you said, right, imprisoned Georgian opposition leaders. But they call on Ursula von der Leyen for one measure, that is the suspension of visa, free travel for a wide range of authorities from their country. As far as we know, the EU edges closer to adopting new visa suspension rules that don't require unanimity. Do you believe that such a measure could somehow have an impact on Georgian Dream Party?
I do believe today European Parliament voted in favor of procedure that will simplify suspension of visa liberalization for the citizens of third country. Most probably, European Union will activate this suspension mechanism, but it's not right now. It's not clear in what way and in what form. Most probably, European Union will choose to suspend this mechanism for officials, not only for party and state officials, but officials that enable this repressive regime in the country. I think suspension of this mechanism for entire population will be is not in the interest of the European Union, because it will close this very few remaining opportunities for Georgian young people and trap them under authoritarian regime, which could increase anti-liberal, anti-democratic attitude and nudge them to push them to seek other opportunities in another countries such as China, Russia, which is not in the interest of EU's soft power.
Absolutely not. But if there were a list, for instance, one list of those authorities representatives, that could probably work out, right?
I think there is civil society organizations still working in Georgia. They have lists, and they have a list of those who support the regime, those who enable this repressive, normative regime that cracks down on peaceful demonstrators and violates fundamental human rights to defend, to assemble and express their opinion on certain issues.
So you've been very critical of the latest protests and the way they evolved. So do you believe that this change could affect also Brussels? How Brussels engages with Tbilisi in terms of the whole accession process?
I think Brussels recently issued statements with regards to current local elections. They demand reversal of this repressive legal framework on foreign influence and family values. They want a social dialogue with the civil society representatives, release of political prisoners. They want reform. They want the government to renew the reform. I think Brussels is ready to engage with the Georgian Dream government if they meet the conditions that the Brussels sets. Yeah.
For the time being, protests continue, 313 days already, and the suspended process of Georgia joining the European Union is just suspended until 2028, the day of the elections as well in Georgia, so we will see what time brings then. Thank you so much, Tamar Gamrelidze. Thank you once again for coming to our studio, and see you soon, hopefully. And thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned to TVP World for more comments and updates.